In 2000 in London, an 8-year-old Ivorian girl, Victoria Adjo Climbié, was tortured and murdered by her guardians. Her death led to a public inquiry and produced major changes in child protection policies in the United Kingdom. Born in Abobo, Côte d'Ivoire, Climbié left the country with her great-aunt Marie-Thérèse Kouao, a French citizen, for an education in France, where they travelled before arriving in London in April 1999. It is not known exactly when Kouao started abusing Climbié, although it is suspected to have worsened when Kouao and Climbié met and moved in with Carl Manning, who became Kouao's boyfriend. During the abuse, Climbié was burnt with cigarettes, tied up for periods of longer than 24 hours, and hit with bike chains, hammers and wires. After her death, the police, the social services department of 4 local authorities, the National Health Service, the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and local churches all had contact with her and noted the signs of abuse. However, in what the judge in the trial following Climbié's death described as blinding incompetence, all failed to properly investigate the case and little action was taken. Kouao and Manning were convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. After Climbié's death, the parties involved in her case were widely criticized. A public inquiry, headed by Lord Laming, was ordered. It discovered numerous instances where Climbié could have been saved, noted that many of the organizations involved in her care were badly run, and discussed the racial aspects surrounding the case, as many of the participants were black. The subsequent report by Laming made numerous recommendations related to child protection in England. Climbié's death was largely responsible for the formation of the Every Child Matters initiative, the introduction of the Children Act 2004, the creation of the Contact Point Project, a government database designed to hold information on all children in England, and the creation of the Office of the Children's Commissioner, chaired by the Children's Commissioner for England. Life. Victoria Climbié was born on the 2nd of November 1991 in Abobo near Abidjan, Ivory Coast, the 5th of 7 children. Her parents were Francis Climbié and his wife Berthami C. Marie-Thérèse Kouao, Francis's aunt, was born on the 17th of July 1956 in Bonu, Ivory Coast, and lived in France with her 3 sons. Claiming welfare benefits, she divorced her former husband in 1978 and he died in 1995. Kouao was attending her brother's funeral in the Ivory Coast when she visited the Climbié family in October 1998. She informed them that she wanted to take a child back to France with her and arrange for their education. This sort of informal fosterage is common in the family's society. Victoria Climbié was apparently happy to be chosen, and although her parents had only met Kouao a few times, they were satisfied with the arrangements. From that point onwards, Kouao pretended that Climbié was her daughter. Kouao had originally planned to take another young girl called Anna Kouao, but Anna's parents changed their minds. Climbié travelled on a French passport in the name of Anna Kouao and was known as Anna throughout her life in the United Kingdom. It is not known exactly when Kouao started abusing Climbié. Climbié's parents received 3 messages about her from when she left them until her death, all saying she was in good health. Kouao and Climbié left the Ivory Coast possibly in November 1998 and flew to Paris, France, where Climbié enrolled at school. By December 1998, however, Kouao began to receive warnings about Climbié's absenteeism, and in February 1999, the school issued a child at risk notification and a social worker became involved. The school observed how Climbié tended to fall asleep in class, and the head teacher later recalled Kouao mentioning Climbié suffering from some form of dermatological condition, and that, on her last visit to the school on the 25th of March 1999, Climbié had a shaven head and was wearing a wig. When they left France, Kouao owed the authorities £2,000 after being wrongly paid in child benefit, and it is claimed that Kouao viewed Climbié as a useful tool for claiming benefits. Kouao had also been evicted from her home in France because of rent arrears. United Kingdom. On the 24th of April 1999, Kouao and Victoria Climbié left France and travelled to the United Kingdom, where they settled in Ealing, West London. They had a reservation in a bed and breakfast at Twyford Crescent, Acton, where they lived until the 1st of May 1999, when they moved to Nickel Road, Harlesden, in the London Borough of Brent. On the 25th of April 1999, Kouao and Climbié visited Esther Acker, a distant relative of Kouao by marriage, and a midwife, counselor and preacher. Acker and her daughter noted that Climbié was wearing a wig and looked small and frail. On the 26th of April 1999, Kouao and Climbié visited the Homeless Persons Unit of Ealing Council, where they were seen by Julie Winter, a homeless persons officer. Together, Kouao and Winter completed a housing application form. Kouao explained that Climbié was wearing a wig because she had short hair, an explanation accepted by Winter. Although Winter was shown Climbié's passport, she paid no attention to them, believing that Kouao's application was ineligible on the grounds of habitual residence. Winter confirmed her decision with her duty senior and told Kouao that she was not eligible for housing. She telephoned the referral across to Pamela Fortune, a social worker in Ealing's Acton referral and assessment team. She did not produce a written or electronic documentation of the referral, however, something which would have helped in double-checking the accounts that Kouao gave. Between the 26th of April and early July 1999, Kouao visited Ealing Social Services 18 times for housing and financial purposes. Climbié was with her on at least 10 occasions. The staff then noted Climbié's unkempt appearance, with one staff member, Deborah Gaunt, thinking that she looked like a child from an ActionAid advertisement. However, they did not take any action and may have assumed that Climbié's appearance was a purposeful attempt to persuade the authorities to hand out money. On the 8th of June 1999, Kouao got a job at Northwick Park Hospital. During her first month, no effort was made by Kouao or Ealing Social Services to enroll Climbié in educational or daycare activities. On the 8th of June 1999, Kouao took Climbié to a local GP surgery. The practice nurse did not carry out a physical examination as she was not reported to have any current health problems. By the middle of June 1999, Climbié was spending the majority of her days at the Brent home of Priscilla Cameron, an unregistered childminder, who Kouao met at her job at the hospital. There is no evidence that Climbié was treated badly during her time with Cameron. On several occasions, Cameron observed small cuts to Climbié's fingers. When questioned by Cameron, Kouao said that they were caused by razor blades that Climbié played with. Kouao and Climbié met Acker on the street on or around the 14th of June 1999. In what may have been early signs of deliberate physical harm, Acker noted a scar on Climbié's cheek, which Kouao said was caused by a fall on an escalator. On the 17th of June 1999, in response to what she had seen 3 days earlier, Acker visited Kouao and Climbié's home, and thought that the accommodation was unsuitable. On the 18th of June 1999, Acker anonymously telephoned telephoned Brand's social services, expressing concern over Climbié's situation. Samantha Hunt, the customer service officer who received the call at the one-stop shop at Brand House, faxed the referral to the Children's Social Work Department on that same day. Nobody picked up the referral on that Friday afternoon, and what happened to it was, according to Lord Laming, who headed the subsequent inquiry, the subject of some of the most bizarre and contradictory evidence the inquiry had. A few days later, possibly on the 21st of June 1999, Adjo phoned Brand Social Services again to make sure her concerns were being addressed. Adjo said that she was told by the person on the other end of the telephone that probably they had done something about it. This call, however, did not trigger a new, separate referral. The first referral was not seen until 3 weeks later on the 6th of July 1999, when Robert Smith, the group administrative officer, logged the details of the referral onto the computer, with details of Climbié's injuries. Laming said the delay constituted a significant missed opportunity to protect Climbié. Edward Armstrong, the team manager of the intake duty team, said that he completed a duty manager's action sheet not for the 18th of June referral, which he said never arrived in his office, but from the 21st of June referral, which was a less serious case than the first. Laming called this version of events wholly unbelievable. Laming said that Armstrong's evidence was out of line with that of the other Brand witnesses, that the quality of it much to be desired, and that Armstrong's insistence that he dealt with the 21st of June referral was an attempt to cover up his team's inept handling of a genuine child protection case. On the 14th of June 1999, Kouao and Climbié met Carl Manning on a bus which he was driving. This was the start of Kouao and Manning's relationship, which ended at the time of their arrest 8 months later. She was his first girlfriend. The relationship developed quickly, and on the 6th of July 1999, Kouao and Climbié moved into Manning's one-bedroom flat at Somerset Gardens in Tottenham, in the London borough of Haringey. There is evidence that Climbié's abuse increased soon after moving into Manning's flat. On the 7th of July 1999, Brand Social Services sent a letter to Nickel Road, where Kouao and Climbié were staying, informing them of a home visit. On the 14th of July 1999, two social workers, Laurie Hobbs and Monica Bridgman, visited the address but found no answer. Kouao and Climbié had already moved out on the 6th of July 1999. Hobbs and Bridgman made no further inquiries at the property that might have led to a trail on Climbié's whereabouts. Prior to the visit, they had not done any background checks and had only the haziest idea of what they were investigating. The Laming report suggests that no reports of follow-up notes were made, and that the only information additional to the referral were the notes "not at this address, have moved." First hospital admission. On the 13th of July 1999, Kouao took Climbié to Cameron's house, asking her to take Climbié permanently because Manning did not want her. Cameron refused but agreed to take her for the night. Cameron, her son Patrick, and her daughter Avril observed that Climbié had numerous injuries, including a burn on her face and a loose piece of skin hanging from her right eyelid, which Kouao said was self-inflicted. Manning's account in the subsequent inquiry differed, and he said that he hit Climbié because of her incontinence, beginning with slaps, but progressing to using his fist by the end of July. It was highly likely that at least some of the injuries were the result of deliberate physical harm. The next day, on the 14th of July 1999, Cameron's daughter Avril took Climbié to see Marie-Thérèse, a French teacher at her son's school. Kader advised that Climbié be taken to hospital. At 11 a.m. the same day, Avril took Climbié to the emergency department of Central Middlesex Hospital. At 11:50 a.m., Climbié was seen by Dr. Rhys Bainon, a senior house officer in the department. Bainon took Climbié's history from Avril and thought that there was a strong possibility that the injuries were non-accidental. Due to hospital child protection guidelines, he referred the case to Dr. Adjo, the on-call pediatric registrar. Bainon conducted only a cursory examination of Climbié because he believed she was going to be examined by the pediatric team. The Laming report said that he exhibited sound judgment in his care of Victoria by referring her immediately to a pediatric registrar. Climbié arrived at Barnaby Bear Ward where she was examined by Job, who noted various injuries. When asked about the injuries, Climbié said they were self-inflicted, a claim the pediatrician did not think was credible. Job's notes were detailed and thorough, in contrast to those of the other doctors that examined her. Having examined Climbié, the pediatrician was strongly suspicious that the injuries were non-accidental, and she decided to admit Climbié onto the ward. The doctors alerted Brent Police and Social Services, and she was placed under police protection, with a 72-hour protection order preventing her from leaving hospital. Kouao told the doctors that she had scabies, and that the injuries were self-inflicted. Many doctors and nurses suspected that the injuries were non-accidental. However, Ruby Schwartz, the consultant pediatrician and named child protection doctor at the hospital, diagnosed scabies and decided that it was scratching that caused the injuries. She made the diagnosis without speaking to Climbié alone. Schwartz later admitted that she made a mistake. Another doctor, one of Schwartz Jr.'s, misleadingly wrote to Social Services saying there was no child protection issue. When Michelle Hine, a child protection officer at Brent Council, received a report notifying her of Climbié's injuries, she planned to open an investigation into the case. However, the next day she heard of Schwartz's diagnosis and downgraded Climbié's level of care, trusting Schwartz's judgment. She later expressed regret over her actions. Schwartz said in the inquiry that she expected Social Services to follow up the case. Neil Garnham QC, counsel to the inquiry following Climbié's death, later said to her, "There is a terrible danger here, is there not? Doctor of Social Services on the one hand and you on the other, each expecting the other to do the investigation, with the result that nobody does." The police officer allocated to Climbié's case for the Brent Child Protection Team, Rachel Dewar, decided to lift the police protection, allowing Climbié to return home, when told by a social worker that she had scabies. Under the Children Act 1989, Dewar was obliged to see Climbié and tell her she was under police protection, but she did not do this. She also failed to see Kouao Manning. At the time of the decision, Dewar was attending a seminar on child protection. Garnham later said, "We will need to ask why it was thought more important for her to attend the seminar to learn how to deal with child protection cases than deal with the real child protection case for which she was responsible at the time." Kouao took Climbié home on the 15th of July 1999. Sometime in July, probably just before Climbié was admitted to the Central Middlesex Hospital, Kouao befriended a couple, Julian and Chantal Imbadima. Climbié and Kouao visited the home several times over the following months. According to Chantal, Kouao would shout at Climbié all the time and never showed her affection. Second hospital admission on the 24th of July 1999. Climbié was taken by Kouao to the Accident and Emergency Department at North Middlesex Hospital with severe scalding to her head and other injuries. The hospital found no evidence of scabies. Consultant Mary Rossiter felt Climbié was being abused but still wrote "able to discharge" on her notes. According to Maureen and Yates, another doctor at the hospital, when Rossiter had written that note, she had noted that Climbié was exhibiting signs of neglect, emotional abuse and physical abuse. Later, in the inquiry, Rossiter said that by writing "able to discharge," she did not mean she wanted Climbié to go home, merely that she was physically fit to leave. Garnham said, quite how the subtlety of that distinction was to be ascertained from the notes is far from obvious. Rossiter admitted to the inquiry that she had expected police and social services to follow up on the case. For a brief period while she was in hospital, Enfield Social Services took up the case before passing it to Haringey. A social worker and police officer from Haringey Council, Lisa Arthurwari and Karen Jones, respectively, were assigned to her case, and were scheduled to make a home visit on the 4th of August 1999. However, the visit was cancelled once they heard about the scabies. Jones later said, "It might not be logical, but I did not know anything about scabies." She said that she telephoned North Middlesex Hospital for information about the disease, but Garnham had evidence that the staff there dealt with no such inquiry. Jones was told by a doctor that Climbié's injuries were consistent with belt buckle marks, although she claimed in the inquiry there was no evidence of child abuse. On the 5th of August 1999, a Haringey social worker, Barry Almeida, took Climbié to an NSPCC centre in Tottenham, where she was assigned to Sylvia Henry. There was some confusion as to why the centre was being referred to for the case. Henry later contacted Almeida and was told, according to Henry, that Climbié had moved out of the borough, thereby closing the case. Almeida said he could not remember whether this conversation did take place. On the same day, Kouao met Arthurwari and Jones at the Haringey Social Services Department, and claimed that Climbié had poured boiling water over herself to stop the itching caused by the scabies and that she had used utensils to cause the other injuries. The social worker and police officer believed her, deciding that the injuries were probably accidental, and allowed Climbié to return home the following day, which she did. Post-hospital events. On the 7th of August 1999, Kouao visited Ealing Social Services. They said it was a housing issue and that the case was closed. Ealing Social Services would later be described as chaotic. As a follow-up measure, a staff member at the hospital contacted a health visitor, but the health visitor said in the inquiry that she did not receive any contact. On the 13th of August 1999, Rossiter wrote to Petra Kitchman of Brent Council, asking her to follow up on the Climbié case. Kitchman said in the inquiry that she contacted Arthurwari, but Arthurwari denied this. Later, on the 2nd of September 1999, Rossiter sent a second letter. Kitchman said she spoke to Arthurwari about this, but Arthurwari denied this again. Arthurwari made a visit to Climbié's home on the 16th of August 1999 and another one when Manning began forcing Climbié to sleep in the bar. Arthurwari said in the inquiry that she was under the impression that Climbié seemed happy, but Garnham criticized Arthurwari for not detecting any of the abuse, although Manning had described this visit as a put-up job. Arthurwari and Climbié had met on 4 occasions, where they were together for a total of less than 30 minutes, barely speaking to each other. From then on, Kouao kept Climbié away from hospitals, turning instead to churches. Kouao said to the pastors that she was the mother and that demons were inside Climbié. The pastor at the Mission Ensemble pour Christ, Pascalo Rome, offered prayers for Climbié to cast out the devil, and thought that her injuries were due to demonic possession. protection. On another occasion, Kouao took Climbié to a church run by the Universal Church of the Kingdom of God, where the pastor, Alvaro Lima, suspected she was being abused, although he took no action. He said in the inquiry that Climbié told him that Satan had told her to burn herself. The pastor did not believe her, but he still believed that a person could be possessed. From October 1999 to January 2000, Manning forced Climbié to sleep in a bin liner in the bath in her own excrement. During a later police interview, Manning said this was because of her frequent bedwetting. At Haringey Social Services on the 1st of November 1999, Kouao told social workers that Manning sexually assaulted Climbié, but withdrew the accusation the following day. In one of Arthur's visits, during a conversation about housing, Arthur said that the council only accommodated children believed to be at serious risk. Laming said in his report, "It may be no coincidence that within 3 days of this conversation, Kouao contacted Ms. Arthur to make allegations which, if true, would have placed Victoria squarely within that category." Jones sent a letter to Kouao, which was ignored, and no further action was taken. Manning later denied the allegation. Alan Hodges, the police sergeant overseeing the investigation, claimed in the inquiry that the social workers were obstructing the police in dealing with child protection cases. Between December 1999 and January 2000, Arthur made 3 visits to the flat, but she received no answer. She speculated to her supervisor, Carol Baptiste, that they had returned to France. Despite no evidence, her supervisor wrote on Climbié's file that they had left the area. On the 18th of February 2000, they wrote to Kouao saying that if they did not receive any contact from them, they would close the case. A week later, on the 25th of February 2000, they closed the case, on the same day that Climbié died. Death and trial. On the 24th of February 2000, Victoria Climbié was taken semi-conscious and suffering from hypothermia, multiple organ failure and malnutrition, to the local Universal Church of the Kingdom of God. After they left, the minicab driver was horrified at Climbié's condition and took her straight to the Accident and Emergency Department at North Middlesex Hospital. She was then transferred to the intensive care unit at St Mary's Hospital. The ambulance crew who drove her to St Mary's described how, although Kouao had kept saying, my baby," her concern seemed not quite enough, and that Manning seemed almost as if he was not there. Climbié died the following day at 3:15 p.m. a local time. The pathologist who examined her body noted 128 separate injuries and scars on her body, and described it as the worst case of child abuse she had ever seen. Climbié had been burnt with cigarettes, tied up for periods of longer than 24 hours, and hit with bike chains, hammers and wires. During her life in Britain, Climbié was known to 4 local authorities, 2 child protection police teams, 2 hospitals, an NSPCC centre, and a few local churches. She was buried in Grand Bassam near her hometown. Kouao was arrested on the day that Climbié died, and Manning the following day. Kouao told police, "It is terrible. I have just lost my child." On the 20th of November 2000, at the Old Bailey, the trial into her death opened, where Kouao and Manning were charged with child cruelty and murder. Kouao denied all charges, and Manning pleaded guilty to charges of cruelty and manslaughter. The judge described the people in Climbié's case as blindingly incompetent. In his diary, Manning described Climbié as Satan, and said that no matter how hard he hit her, she did not cry or show signs that she was hurt. On the 12th of January 2001, both were found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge said to them, "What Victoria endured was truly unimaginable. She died at both your hands, a lonely drawn-out death. Kouao went to Durham Prison and Manning went to Wakefield Prison.